Hi there, my name's Mark. I did my VCE in 2016 and completed English with a study score of 50. Since then, I've been writing study guides with LSG, and I wrote this one on Station 11. One of the things I really struggled with this text, especially reading it for the first time, was kind of wrapping my head around what was happening and when. Because it's set over so many different timelines, it was definitely tricky to keep track. That said, because so many past events influence future events, having a good idea of the chronological sequence is actually really important. The easiest way to trace the chronological order of events is probably by following the key characters over time, which we'll have a go at in this video. Make some notes or even a diagram as we go through this together. All of this is also included in my study guide on Station 11, but a bit more on that later. Let's start with Arthur Leander, an actor who lived before the Georgia flu. Aged 17, he leaves his small island home to study and pursue acting. Very successfully, as it turns out. He meets Clark Thompson while studying, though Clark would eventually return to London. Several years later, he meets Miranda Carroll for the first time, and she is 17 here. They part ways and meet again another 7 years later. She's 24 and he's 36. A photograph of this meeting survives, and we know this happens 14 years before the flu. They get married soon after. Next, we know that by their third wedding anniversary, 11 years before the flu, Arthur had begun his affair with Elizabeth Colton. That night, Miranda finds out and is photographed by Jeevan Chowdhury, then a paparazzo. Within a year, Arthur and Miranda divorce and she returns to the corporate world. Within 3 years, Arthur and Elizabeth have a son together. We know this because Tyler is 8 when the flu hits. Arthur and Elizabeth divorce a year later, so 7 years before the flu. He and Jeevan discuss this in an interview, and Jeevan is now an entertainment journalist. Arthur moves on to his next wife, Lydia, an actress, just like Elizabeth, while Elizabeth and Tyler relocate to Jerusalem. A year before the flu arrives, Clark and Arthur have dinner together, and we know that Lydia divorced him by then as well. The year of the flu, Kirsten Raymond is a child actress aged 8, working with Arthur on the King Lear production. Also working with them is Tanya, whose student debt Arthur had committed to pay off. Jeevan is no longer in entertainment, he's now training to be an emergency medical technician. When Arthur dies, Jeevan is unable to save his life, and this is the start of the novel. As Arthur's loved ones are notified of his death, some begin trying to return to Toronto. Elizabeth and Clark even board the same flight. However, the flu then hits and they are trapped in what would become the Seven City Airport settlement. Miranda is stuck in Malaysia and she dies of the flu. Jeevan quarantines with his paraplegic brother Frank, who commits suicide in order to give Jeevan a better chance at survival. Kirsten loses her parents and she and her brother walk for all of year 1 before he too passes away. She doesn't remember anything else from this period immediately following the outbreak. In year 2, Elizabeth and Tyler leave Seven City Airport. We don't know what happens to Elizabeth after, but we do know Tyler grows up to become the Prophet. In year 6, Kirsten is discovered by the Traveling Symphony in Ohio, and she's been with them ever since. In year 15, Kirsten is interviewed, and the newspaper is picked up by Clark, still at the airport. By this time, Jeevan is basically a doctor, and he has his own run-ins with the Prophet. In year 20, Charlie and Jeremy arrive at the airport, and Clark realizes the Prophet's true identity. The rest of the novel's main plot is set here. The non-linear nature of this story can definitely make it hard to follow, and hopefully this video has helped with that. If you did find it helpful, I'd love to recommend LSG's Station 11 study guide, written up by yours truly. In this study guide, we've worked really hard to ensure that everything in there isn't just more reading for you to do, but actually offers helpful and meaningful advice so you can tackle your SACs and exams. I cover plot summary and analysis and themes, but more importantly, I dive into things you need to know to tick off all the VCAR criteria. These include meta-language, like use of symbols and narrative form, how 2020 has changed our interpretation of this text, hello COVID-19, and I've also included 5 A+ sample essays, all fully annotated, so you know exactly what you need to do to get those better marks. You can read a free sample of this study guide on our shop page, and I'll link it to you here. Thank you and good luck!